Welcome into the first episode of another Wild podcast. I'm AJ Fredrickson. Joining me is Jake Jensen. Um, the guy's so nice. I wanted to work with him twice. Slinging merch together up at Letterman Sports. Now we're going to be doing a maybe somewhat weekly show, just talking about the Wild. A little late on maybe the season previews and all of the insights of the preseason training camps and all the other fun stuff leading up to that. But no better way to kick off an episode than with an absolute trouncing on opening night. First off, Jake, thanks for joining me. Super glad to have you here, man.
I'm very excited to be here, AJ. Thanks for including me in this. I know it was kind of just out of the blue, but it just worked out perfectly. It's funny you said the trouncing because everyone's all excited and boom, one night and it's back to reality for Minnesota fans. So
Yeah.
that's huge. But yeah, I'm very excited to be doing this with you. I know we're going to have some fun with it. So very stoked and very excited.
Yeah, no, like I said in text, I was kind of just like I've been kind of meaning to do something like this for a while, and um, the first dude that came to mind was you, and I figured, well, why not? It's been a while, but speaking of being a while, was the Minnesota Wild taking the ice? So they did so last night, opening the season up against the New York Rangers in a game that I think a lot of people, myself included, expected to be a little more harder fought, a closer contest than what it was. Instead, the Wild get absolutely throttled. 7-3 is the final. Just really not a lot of life from the get-go. I was fortunate enough to be able to get some tickets and be in the building yesterday. The atmosphere was fun until maybe like 5 minutes after puck drop. It was it was immediately like, okay, this is a team that looks like they're just outmatched, in trouble. Um, what were your initial takeaways from the game last night before we really dive into it?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of like tell you about like my lead up to it. So,
Yeah,
get home from work. Just first of all, you wake up. It's game day. It's the first one. Everyone's excited. There's a good buzz around Minnesota anywhere you go. And the workplace was everyone was excited. I go home. We go to my parents' house. We had me and my fiance Britt, and we had some burgers. A couple brewskis. Everything's ready to go. And then, like you said, reality just smacks you in the face and you're like, oh, okay, here we go, we're in for another year. But my initial reaction was, there's this is one of the seasons where there's a lot of pressure on the Wild. It seems like they're finally getting national attention. They're getting because of their superstar Kirill Kaprizov, but it just it was a first game. It was a 7-3 beating,
yeah,
and I think it maybe is a good thing because if you look in hindsight, the Wild have been awesome in their home openers, and I don't know what was the year that they lost. Maybe that was 2003 when they made that big run. But the new Athletic writer Joe Smith said something about that, how Tampa Bay got throttled in last year
yeah.
when they went to the Cup final. But it's good to get that out of the way, and Minnesota has humbled themselves once again.
No, I think it's good. My feeling was this team is going to regress a little bit just because it's hard to snap your fingers and replace a guy like Kevin Fiala who you lose to the Kings because you're strapped for cap and everything like that. But um, I think maybe the hype leading up to it was a little overzealous from what a lot of Wild fans were maybe thinking, and they were going to come out and just we're going to start the season hot and really get in the driver's seat of the division and maybe contest the Avalanche for that number one spot in the Central. And I don't think so. I don't think so. The good news is I think the Rangers are a good team to lose 7-3 to. It's not the Coyotes. It's not the Blackhawks who look like they're going to be atrocious. It's a team that made the playoffs last year. They have arguably a top 5, maybe top 3 goalie in the league. One of the better defensemen in the league at just really high powered scoring. I think did they have multiple 50 goal scorers or was it just Kreider for them last year?
I think it was just Kreider. Zibanejad was up there.
Yeah.
But I was gonna literally just talk about that, so I'm glad you went on that about the Rangers. They're good.
Yeah,
They're
I mean
a good squad.
they're a very good team. I mean, if you just look at the guys that contributed on their goals, even in just the first period, Chris Kreider, 50 goal scorer last season. Adam Fox, Norris Trophy winner, Artemi Panarin, like perennial 40+ goal scorer. So
It's
they have
funny.
the talent.
You'll get a kick out of this. So I was with Nils last night. Those of you who don't know Nils, that's my brother, and he was watching the game with me. And we're on the couch, and it was as they were getting throttled 3-rip. He's clearly defeated on his side of the couch, and he's just looking for something to say, something smart assy. And he looks over at me and he just goes, you have it good when you got Lafreniere and Kako, and they're not even your best players. So he just had to go in there, and that's clearly not his voice, or it's not good enough. But hearing that from him was hilarious, and I was like, yeah, hockey's back, baby. I love it. So
God, yeah, how spoiled are they? Rangers fans, that is, that fan base. You've got just these stars, and then the future is just so good because what Adam Fox is like 23. Lafreniere, I think, just turned 1920. Capo Caco's like 20, 21 now. So,
yep.
Some of the rising stars can't even crack a beer on that team. So, they're gonna be good for a while. But you end up losing 7-3. That first period, it goes Kreider, Fox, Panarin, and it's one of those things. I was sitting over in section 205, and my buddies are like, "Oh, this is bad. This is bad." And I was just saying, like, if they go into the locker room down 2-0, all they have to do is win the next 2 periods, and they're guaranteed overtime. And then, like 13 seconds later, Panarin makes it 3-0.
That was the dagger, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
That was the dagger.
That game was over after the first period. If you could keep it 2-0, you at least have a little life, and you can say that exact spins on, like, all right, all we got to do is outwork them for the next 20, and then we got to outwork them for another 20, and then we're all set. We got overtime hockey or whatever, and you're getting a point. But no, as soon as it went down 3-0 in the first, it's like, all right. After the first, I don't know if you heard it on the TV broadcast, but there was I wouldn't say it was raining down booze, but it was sprinkling. It was sprinkling. What are your thoughts on booing your team down 3-0 after 20 minutes of the season?
I mean, my takeaway there is the fans are probably pissed because tickets aren't cheap these days. So, yeah, as you could probably attest to, but they were probably a little upset that they didn't at least get a goal and get the crowd bumping or anything. But, typically Minnesota fans like to cheer for their team when they're good and hate them when they're bad. So I feel like it was right on par. I didn't hear those from the TV though.
It like I said, it wasn't like a full force. It was like 30% of maybe like the sections around me was like, guys, let's relax. Everybody's still shaking off a little rust here.
I gotta say though, just going back to the atmosphere, how was it? Is it a little bit more youthful and jubilant than it has been in the past? Because I don't know if you noticed, but in the past, like 10 years ago or so, it was like if you made a sound, the old people were getting pissed at you that were sitting next to you because they're like trying to watch the game. And it's like, okay, like now I feel like it's almost like a party, almost in a way.
No, that's what I've loved this. This is something like I've subtly like noticed over the years, but you're totally right, because like way back in the day, I would go with my parents or whatever, and it felt like, it's kind of like a library. I gotta all right, sorry guys, I just had to cough. We're still watching the game, trust me. But no, it's like it's ever since maybe it seems like maybe the past like 4 or 3 years or so that it's been a huge shift of we're going to be a little rowdier, and you have people that are yelling the entire game, and maybe it's not the most like intellectual people about stuff, or maybe it's maybe not the most sober people about stuff, but no, I mean, I like it. It's the disregard for the others around you. I'm all for, you paid your ticket, you have your fun, and I think everybody there is down to have a little bit of fun. You understand you're sacrificing a quiet night in by paying the money to go watch this game where guys skate around with knives on their feet. So,
love that.
Yeah. We mentioned shaking off the rust. One guy who didn't, Matt Boldy, he comes in. It took him maybe like a period to actually like settle into that game, but he had 2 of the Wild's 3 goals. One of them was just an absolute beautiful pass. I want to say it was Matt Dumba who charged up and dropped it in for him, and then he just kind of
Yeah.
like patience, move a little around, and then just tucked it in. That goal was beautiful. Do you think he's going to be able to? The big question I've seen is, can he still produce without Kevin Fiala on his line? Because that was one of the reasons I think Kevin Fiala turned into a guy who could maybe produce every night rather than you're going to get him for 3 games and then he's going to be off for 3 games. Once Matt Boldy got the call up last year, it seemed like that was a big change for him just because he had a guy who actually was competent on the other wing. Now that he's gone, can Matt Boldy still produce at that level despite having not Kevin Fiala opposite him?
Yeah, I think he can. And I don't want to touch on that second goal you're talking about too, because man, was that gorgeous.
Yeah.
He just walked in and completely danced Shesterkin out of the net, which is really rare. I mean, at one point in the game, I didn't know if Shesterkin had a pulse on him. He was just calm back there, and he was going, yeah, he's going crazy, stopping those pucks. But to answer the question there, I think the interesting thing is Kevin Fiala going to be able to do it without Boldy? Because you could say the thing there, but as you were saying before too, Kevin Fiala didn't really get things going consistently until Boldy came up with him and was that steady force. And Boldy's one of those wingers, almost like a Mikko Rantanen, which is a little bit rare this day and age, where he can drive the play off of the wing, where he's a guy that can carry the puck in. He's not just, north south. He kind of goes all over the place. He's smooth with it, and he can make the plays happen. He's patient. He has the killer instinct. So I certainly think that Matt Boldy is a guy that, as he continues to grow into his frame, and he's still really young, but he seems to me like a guy that could shake north of 70 points this year. So
Yeah, no, I think he's gonna be fine. Especially we've seen what he can do on a line with Marco Rossi, and granted that is in the AHL, but
I
now
hope
that
it happens sooner than later.
I want them to shift things around just to like get those two just to see it. I just want to see it.
I would love to see eventually Rossi, Boldy, and Goudreau. I think Goudreau and Boldy are good together. I don't really know what it is about Goudreau's game, but those two are just good together. And I think Rossi, all respect to Dewar and Duhaime, but they are what they are. They're bottom six guys. They're greasy. They're young. They can score, but I think Rossi needs to be up with that top six. He needs to be with those big boys.
Yeah, and that's not, I wouldn't say, a knock to Dewar or Duhaime.
No,
I think they know their game, and you
Yep.
can't have all skill guys in your top 12 forwards. You need some guys like that are bottom six that are going to go out there and like they're going to be rats. They're going to get under the skin of the opponents and they're going to grind it out in the corners and stuff like that. But it doesn't pair well, like you said, with a guy like Rossi who is a little more elegance, little ballet on ice, whereas those guys are like, we're cracking skulls. But
So
I mean, hey, I would love to have them prove me wrong and show flashes of that, but I want it to be consistent because you can't waste a guy like Marco Rossi like that.
No, not at all. Especially at this point, if he could be tearing. I mean, I don't know how much more he has to prove at the AHL level. He completely tore it up last year, and I think he's ready for the NHL challenge. But I got to go back one more time to Nils. He actually said something funny too. So pregame, I mean, he might as well just be a member of this show if I'm going to keep referencing him like this. But they showed the lineup card of all the 12 forwards, the 60, and the two goalies for the Wild pregame. And he looks at it and he looks at me and he goes, I think this is the first time I've looked at the full lineup card and haven't been pissed about one player that's been in the lineup. He's like, and no offense to these guys, but he goes, there's no Bukestad this year. There's no Rao. There's none of those guys. Like
there's no 1C Vicky Rask.
And I thought you'd get a kick out of that. So I just had to say that there. But it's Nils approved this lineup. So, even if he is playing, say, Rossi with guys like Duhaime and Dewar, they're still very young and they're good players. So exciting times for sure.
Maybe not super exciting was the play in goal of Marc-Andre Fleury last night. And personally, I don't think the 7 are reflective of maybe how he actually played. There was like 4 that I can remember that are like he didn't get a lot of help. Guys just standing, no feet movement, or you double commit to the left, and then it's like, oh hey, backdoor left wide open, Chris Kreider. What is it? What is he going to do right there? So,
Right.
what are you? Is there any concern for you about Flower right now?
I mean the one concern about Flower for me is he at this point in his career, like, he's a Hall of Famer. He is what he is. He's got this name around him. He's an X factor on Chell, like, all that stuff. But he's just a little. There's a lot of dip on his chip, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
he is very, very aggressive, and I think we saw that last night. He's a lot different than, say, a guy like Cam Talbot was, where Cam is more of a calming presence in net, doesn't like to move a whole lot. But I would say it's one game, but I've seen stretches like this from Fleury in recent years where he's just a little bit too aggressive with the way that he goaltends, and sometimes it pays off. Awesome, he'll make a crazy save, uh, but sometimes, like you see last night, he'll be out of position, and it's just a very easy goal for them to do. Last night was not all his fault. Like you were saying, the defense was very bad. The defensive structure was awful around him. But I think you throw that away, and you definitely have to come back with Fleury tomorrow, and see what he has. I think you let him do that. But if it's a 5-game stretch, sure, maybe you get worried. But it is one game. It's not the end of the world. So
yeah,
I would like to see him come back and get back to kind of that stature that we saw with him when he was playing well down the stretch.
yeah, and like you said, with his age and everything like that, and maybe the what else is there really for him to accomplish in the sport of hockey? Like he's got the gold medal, he's got the Stanley Cup, he's got the Vezina Trophy, like he's got the Hall of Fame all but locked up at this point.
For sure.
It's not like he has, and this is what makes maybe those like long lasting guys different than some other people, where it's like I feel like he still has the drive where he wants to wake up, put in the hours. He wants to go out there and like sacrifice everything to get a win for his team at the end of the day. But I am concerned about the workload because
For sure.
last year after the acquisition, it's like you have that 1A, 1B two-headed dragon of Cam Talbot and him. Now it's Philip Gustafson, who I don't think is bad. I think he's going to be a more than suitable backup, but that's what he is. He's a backup. If there's any work issues, and then you have to throw in a Gustafson against, say, uh, the Avalanche, or you have to throw him in a game against the Flames when they come to town, or even like I don't know the Blue Jackets, and now with Johnny Hockey over there, who is going to spice up that offense, he might be hung out to dry. And I think there's going to be a lot of defensive aspects that they're going to clean up to where that was the big thing with Cam Talbot came over however many years ago, where it's like they allow these low percentage shots, which is going to eventually raise his goal against average, just because he's going to save those easy kind of muffins from out wide. But um, if they don't, it's going to be trouble. I think at the end of the day, he's still going to be this guy that is going to more than anything get the job done. But I don't think anybody's going to come out of here at the end of the season and be like, he was the best goalie in the league by far. He won us so many games. He might steal you one or two here and there, but I don't expect him to be able to make a stretch of like he's starting 4 out of 5 over a 2 week or week and a half, 2 week span, and he's stealing you 2 games out of those. Like you're going to need the offense in front of him to put up 3 at least.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
I
I don't know.
I think the big thing with Fleury too, we all know Jesper Wallstedt, who's going to play in the AHL this year, is the goalie of the future. He probably could play right now, to be honest with you.
Do you
Um,
think so?
I I
I was going
really
to ask you
do.
about that.
Yeah, I really do think that Wallstedt has it. I think he's the guy. He's going to be one of the best goaltenders in the league very soon here. I think a lot of the Fleury, you know, signing is hopefully at some point here that he will get to spend some time with Wallstat, and it'll rub off a little bit on him. And then he'll be able to just take some of that with him, I guess. But obviously, Guerin wants to win now with Fleury, but once Fleury's contract is done, we're jumping like way ahead here.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of guys still on entry levels, and there's going to be a lot of cap space. So I'm not concerned at all with Fleury. I think he's going to be fine. And like you said, he's not gonna probably win another Vesna, but his people want to go out and play in front of him, and I think they're going to play a lot better against a Kings team than they did against the Rangers here, as maybe a little bit overexcitement. It's kind of like a puppy when you let him loose. I think a lot of these Wild players were just too excited last night.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Speaking once again of last night, everybody knows how good that top line, especially with the pairing of Kaprizov and Zuccarello, is with Hartman in the middle. They didn't have maybe a night to write home about for them. They were on ice for 3 goals against, didn't score a single goal as a 5-on-5. Obviously, Zuccarello had the power play marker, but what do you want to see from that line here moving forward? Because that line together, the trio was out there for about 11 minutes last night. They had an expected like half a goal or in some change. Did you like their play? Did you not like their play? It's the first night of the season. There's 81 more games to go, so we know that those guys are going to show out and be your workhorse of a line in terms of getting the point production there. But now that you don't have that solidified secondary threat of Kevin Fiala on line 2 with Boldy and Gaudreau, a lot of teams are going to just, hey, we got to shut down that line, and then we'll deal with the rest later on. But we're going to send our best 2 defensemen out every time against them to match.
Yeah, I saw warts in all 3 of their games last night a little bit. I don't think they were exactly on it. Kaprizov was trying his best early on. He looked awesome,
Yeah.
making moves around people and just circling it around, almost like a offensive or forward type of Cale Makar. He reminds me a lot of just the way he goes around and buzzes. Barzell's kind of that same mold. But Hartman, I know he missed a couple chances. I think he was getting a little upset. So he's one of those guys that runs off emotions. As you can probably tell, when he gets mad, he shows it. Kaprizov doesn't really show that. Zuccarello doesn't really show that. So I think it's just going to take a goal from Kaprizov and see that smile, and everything's going to come back to what we've known and what we've seen. But it wasn't for lack of effort. They were definitely trying last night, and they were out there and they were generating stuff. They just couldn't finish it, and Hartman especially. So I think he was frustrated. Took a couple of really stupid penalties. But
Yeah.
I think they'll be back on it, and they'll be just fine. Top center Ryan Hartman's going to be okay.
Maybe one of the best contracts, like team friendly wise, in the league based on his production last year. He's making less than $2 million. Just he kind of does it all. He's physical. He can dish. He gets the minutes up, and he can penalty kill if needed. Like, yeah. And speaking of that, I mean, Dean Evison said in his post game presser before he even got to those was, we've addressed the dumb penalties already, like inside the room internally. That was a big thing for me last night, just sitting there watching. It's like, that is why are you going full Mary Lou hook on a guy's skate just exiting the zone? There's no need for you to trip him right there. Like, same with Middleton. You don't need to hook that guy right there. Just let the play go. You can get these kind of mind games going, but this early in the game, if you're going to do stupid stuff like that, you got to have maybe a lead or at least some momentum on your side, so that if you do go down a man for 2 minutes, the crowd's going to be behind you. There's nothing up until those points early that the crowd was like buzzing, and the guys, they had that momentum. They were just really slinging it around. It was just like, all right, I'm going to go out there and take a hooking call. I'll see you guys in 2 minutes. So kind of killed any momentum that they had moving on there. This is going to put you on the spot a little bit here, but I kind of want to talk about end of season predictions, because we didn't get a chance to maybe do the previews. and then we can kind of wrap up. But so first off, it's just going to be end of season MVP minus Kirill. You can't choose Kirill, and then that's the one rule for that. And then where do you think they're gonna slot up in the Central Division? Who do you think is going to be 1, 2, 3? If they're not going to be in the top 3, will they get a wild card spot? And then my last, before we get to that, maybe so you can have a little time to think about that while we talk here, is what's your instant overreaction from night number 1? What's one thing you saw that's like, this can't happen again? If this does, the season's been like, what? I have one or two, but and if you want me to go first, I certainly can, because that's kind of like right off the gun for you if you want to think about it. If you want me to hop into it first, I certainly can.
I think I'm good.
Okay, yeah.
My biggest overreaction probably is the play of I would, even go back, and I'm not concerned about it, but I would think Marc-Andre Fleury needs to settle down a little bit in the crease. I think he's fishing a little bit too much, trying to make something big happen. And I think he could benefit a little bit from staying deeper in his net. I think he's out a little bit too far, and they're just picking him apart. And when you play a team like the Rangers, where they're so run and gun and they've got all these superstars on their team, they're gonna be able to find that soft spot in the back. So my overreaction would probably be that there's concerns with Fleury and his over aggressive play.
Yeah. Mine would be the special teams, specifically the power play. They had a 5-on-3 for like a minute 22. How are you not converting there? How are
That's
you not
right.
doing? And I know, I believe it got cut short a little bit because of something going on with, Eric Sinek being the guy that he is, and for some reason just pissing off the other team.
It's the way he looks.
But no, that was a clear. You kind of have to score here, guys. Get yourself back in the game. This is like your lifeline. The Rangers just said, "Hey, let's have a more competitive game here," and you just said, "Nah, we're fine." That was even on the other 5-on-4s. It looked like they had a plan that they weren't executing. They were moving the puck around. You could tell they want to get it to that either left D or like slightly lower along the wall, and then either get a pass to the middle or just let Kirill shoot and try to pick his spot and beat the goaltender. And maybe it was the penalty kill of the Rangers, but they just locked it down. They didn't overcommit on anything. They didn't really open up too many passing lanes. They were playing a very tight box in the center of the defensive zone. So maybe that is the one thing that the Wild are going to have to work on, is just drawing guys out of position a little bit better, or how to adjust on the fly in a sense, instead of sticking to that one thing, power play after power play after power play. But no, if you can't score on the power play, you're not going to be able to win too many games, because a team's going to average maybe at minimum 2, but more than likely 3 to 4 minors a game. You got to score on at least one of those.
Right.
So if you can't do it, I know they did last night, and that was a very good shot. But the ones where they had a little more orchestrated, setup time, and had to like really get into the final 30 seconds of those power plays, it just didn't look like they were really penetrating or had those high danger chances that you want on the power play. They were getting shots, but it was just like, all right, top of the circle, I'm going to try to beat him over the glove, rather than let's go back door and make him make a sprawling save. So
Right. And that's great, because Shesterkin is one of those guys where he's always going to be in position. So you have to make him go out of his way a little bit to beat him. And we saw that with Boldy single-handedly undressing him, that second goal that he scored. A thing of beauty, but absolutely, man. I think that's a solid one there.
All right. So like I said, end of season predictions. Let's start first. Who's your MVP for the Wild when everything is said and done that isn't named Kirill Kaprizov?
Oh, it's easy to go with, I think I'm going to go with Jonas Brodin. I think he has to be that guy. He's never going to put up points. Everyone knows that, but he's so important defensively. I think if he were to go down, and, MVP for me is someone without your team just flutters and doesn't do well. And I think Brodin is going to need to be that top, defensive guy in the whole system. I think he's the best defenseman they have in general. And I think he needs to continue to just be that guy, shut guys down, and then maybe contribute a little bit offensively. So I think Brodin is going to be the guy, and I think he's going to end up being huge for them if they want to make a deep run. So that
Yeah,
that
no.
that's my guy. Kind of an
His
unsung MVP, but like, I'm going to go ahead and say it. That's my MVP.
this is the conversation that I see a lot of people have maybe every awards season in the NHL is if even him or Jared Spurgeon were on the Maple Leafs, or if they played out on the East Coast, if they wore the black and gold of Pittsburgh or the red, white, and blue of the Rangers, they're getting probably Norris like finalist votes. For some reason, just the mark in Minnesota, I feel like just dampens it down. Same thing with like going to Columbus. We knew Seth Jones was really good out there. Now he got a bigger spotlight coming into Chicago. That obviously their team didn't look as great. I'm not going to blame that just on him, but but I think you get what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
same thing for Johnny Gaudreau choosing to go to Columbus in the offseason. It's like, okay, you went from Calgary, now you're going to go to Columbus. Like, it's just how good he is, but all of a sudden I just have that connotation of like, it's Johnny Gaudreau. But no, Jonas Brodin is a great pick. He just locks things down defensively. He's a guy that it seems like he's always healthy. It feels like it at least, and he's able to go out there and even
Right.
in the final 5 minutes of the third period, he looks like he's still got 80% or more in the tank. He's so well conditioned, and maybe that takes after his his Swedish companion and Eric Sinek, but they can throw him out there, and I'm like, I am so confident that they are going to probably not allow a goal. He drives guys wide. He picks up guys physically. He's not like the smaller Jared Spurgeon who has to maybe rely on positioning and stick work. He can throw the body around if needed. So I mean that's a really good pick, and it is hard to pick a defenseman, but if you're going to pick one, I think that's the right one. I'm going to go a little bit of the opposite route, and I just mentioned him. I'm going to say Joel Eriksson Ek. The penalty killing, he was on trajectory to be a final three guy for the Selke last year. Just wasn't able to maybe keep that streak up because he was getting in the offense, and at times it's like, wow, he's putting up 2 goals a game and then maybe a couple games off, but he's doing things on the penalty kill and all this stuff. He just plays such a good two-way game that it's, I mean, he when you see him get in the same conversation as like a Bergeron or even like McDavid with, he's outworking the competition, so he's drawing the penalties to then benefit his team, even if he's not on the power play. He's so crucial as a guy who maybe isn't this standout star, but he's one of those within the fan base. That team doesn't function right if he's not in the lineup. He's maybe not the heart, but he is sure as heck connected to the heart in some way. So that's my pick, at least.
Couple Swedes.
Big Swede fans here. I'll go first on the final prediction of the standings. I think the Central is going to shake out Colorado first, and if you don't have Colorado first, I don't know what you're doing. They're just a powerhouse. I have the Blues number 2 personally. I just think that they've proven to be just such a deep team, and they always seem to just find a way, and whether it's the culture there or some of the core guys, kind of like I said with Eriksson Ek, is like they have those type of guys all throughout. I think they're just going to be another team that's just they're going to be relentless in the sense that you're not going to expect them to grind out points against some top clubs, but they're going to take them to overtime, or maybe they're going to steal one. And they still have that goaltending. Husso's there. Binnington, if he wants to be Jordan Binnington, I mean, he's as much as I hate to say it, because the guy is just a pain in the ass a lot of the times. He's a good goaltender on his game. So I have them 2. I have the Wild 3, which is going to stink because that would mean that they have to go into St. Louis just like last year for that first round of the playoffs. But that's my top 3: Colorado, St. Louis, Minnesota.
For sure. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I think the Wild are going to not finish in the top 3. I think they're going to be a wild card team, just because of all the expectations, and they're going to have good games and bad games.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go ahead and put Colorado at number 1, like you said. You just have to. They're just an absolute wagon. Like they're so good top to bottom. Georgiev, their new goalie's a stud. You could even say he's an upgrade above Kemper
I
almost,
would.
in my opinion.
I
I've never really thought Kemper was that dude. But I really do think Georgiev was an awesome pickup by them. So I'm putting them at number 1. They got all the firepower. They got the best defenseman in the game, one of the best forwards in the game, a couple of the best forwards. I mean,
Yeah.
Mikko Rantanen is so underrated. I mean, he's on my fantasy team, and hey, we can talk about
I'm still
dynasty hockey on this show too. I didn't even think about that.
I'm still kicking myself for not trading you for him last year when I
Yeah.
kind of had that on my spot. As soon as like a week went by, I was like, oh my God, I'm an idiot.
So yeah, we'll have to get into that with this podcast too.
Oh yeah.
But I have them, and I actually have Nashville at number 2. Um,
Really?
I,
Okay.
I do. I think that they are a team that hasn't really had an identity the past couple of years. They've had pieces, but now it seems like they've figured that out. I know they have bad contracts on the team, but Duchesne looks he looks really good again, and he was an awesome player. And I think like you saw at work or when we worked at Letterman, like CCM was pumping him up when he signed with
Yeah.
Nashville, getting these big posters of him for CCM and everything, and didn't quite work out. But now he's looking good in there. He's got that lettuce going.
Mhm.
They got a really good goalie in UC Saros, the Juice. They got a good decor, so I think that's a team that's going to surprise some people. And then I got those pesky little Blues at number 3. They're just always gonna be there, you know.
That's the right way to describe them. Though. Like they are just like I talked about having those rat type of players. They are the rat team because they're gonna come out there and they're just gonna gnaw and chomp at the bit, and then they're gonna wear you down, and eventually it's just like they are, and then they're a playoff team, and they're gonna grind out those dirty, gritty games.
And that Jake Neighbors kid,
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna be a stud.
Yes.
He's gonna be very big for them this year, and they got that new core. They still have O'Reilly, but they got the young guys in. Um, Geez, I was just gonna say Jaden Schwartz because I feel like that was yesterday that he was on that team. But they got Robert Thomas, they got Jordan Kyrou.
Mm-hmm.
Perunovic unfortunately is hurt and he's
Yeah.
probably done for the year. But
I
they
want to
just
see if Cairo can do what he did last year because it seemed like that was a guy who I'm not going to say it was a breakout year because I think we all knew he had it in him, but that was a somewhat of a breakout year where it's just like this is a guy you need to take seriously every single night.
right, especially against the Wild, as everyone saw on the Winter Classic, for sure. But yeah, I think that's my top 3. Honestly, I know Nashville will probably shock a lot of people there. I just really like that team, and I think the Blues are there as well, just because they're going to be probably, and the Wild will make the playoffs. I just think the way the standings need to change, like or the playoff format too. It has to go back to that 1 through 8. I think that was just the superior one, but that's beside the point here.
No,
And
you're spot on. There's no reason to have these like
yeah,
contested division rivals in the first round. 1-8, 2-7, the three
yeah,
six. Like why are we not matching it up like that? It shouldn't. I don't know. It takes so much like of the intensity because there's so much more on the line in that second round, and if you have the better of the two teams probably advancing, so it makes sense to have that matchup second, and it's more gratifying for each fan base because they know their team is better than whoever. Like if they were in a different division, they're taking on. I'm trying to think of like the Kings in the first round or whatever like that. Who
right.
we'll see tomorrow. Maybe that's a pretty good test. But yeah, no, they need to change that. I don't know why it's still the way it is. It seems like everybody that is the consensus. Everybody agrees the current format is not good. The only people that don't are the people that actually have the power to change it. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Uh, and
There's got to be
I appreciate you saying Jake Neighbors. I'm surprised I got him super late in our rookie draft here, like 2 days ago. I got him in like the fourth round.
Well, you know what's funny about that too is I was eyeing him right before I picked there in that round,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Ah, he's gonna slide. No one knows about Jake Neighbors. Like he's just gonna go." And then I went to make my next pick because we had the unlimited time and stuff.
Hmm.
You know, all of us are at work and whatnot. And I search for him and he's not there. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Like, why, why can't I find this guy? I know he's there. And then I look and he's on your team. So I'm very happy for you because he's going to be a stud.
I had that in the first round because I had my decor is not the greatest. Like I have Fox, but I have Seth Jones, and I'm going to have to be high on Seth Jones because I made the decision to take him over other guys. But I don't have like a good third defenseman, I feel like. So I went with Edvidson for the
Mm-hmm.
Red Wings, and I was like, okay, on the way back around, there's only like 5 picks until my next pick, so I'll be fine. I'll either get Juracek for the Blues, no Blue Jackets, excuse me, or if he's not there, Yurov's going to be there for the Wild. Not a
Yeah.
huge deal. Boom, boom, literally right after I picked. So I was like, "What? Come on, guys!" And I even felt like that was a reach on Yurov, but
I think so too.
yeah, but no, I'm glad we're going to be able to talk about that a little bit. Any final thoughts that you maybe have about just last night or the season ahead for the Wild that we didn't touch on tonight?
You know, I would say it's going to be a very exciting season. I think it's going to be high scoring games for the Wild. I don't think they're as defensive as they used to be. I don't think we're going to see, 1-0, 2-0 games like we're
Mm-hmm.
so accustomed to. I think it's going to be a little bit more like last year. And now, especially with Fleury in net, they're going to do that more running gun style. Addison on the back end, we didn't really talk about him, but I think he's going to be awesome. I'm so happy to see that Dean is finally giving a young
Yes.
guy a chance on that top power play.
And a guy I think deserves it, not just only for like the skill that he brings to it, but the work ethic that he's shown. How many times do you think he's made that drive from Iowa to
Oh
the
my
Twin
god.
City? Too many to count. He probably knows every billboard and every exit sign, and guy like you get a feel for the guy, and they tweeted out that clip him and Rossi, both of those guys getting. I laughed out loud. Like Rossi's was a little more genuine because it was like, hey, you did it, bud. You made the roster, and he beamed up, and it was like, oh, okay, I feel really good about that. So they let off with with Addison, and understandably so, because he was like giving him crap about his number, like, I don't even know what number you are. You were 58, no, 59, whatever. Who gave you two? It sounds like a more like full time, and I don't know if it didn't click right away, but he kind of like, yeah, we're congrats, like we're gonna keep you up here permanently. But the look that he gave him, in my opinion, was like, you goddamn right, finally,
Jesus,
it's about damn time. Like just like no like beaming smile, no like thank you very much, sir, I appreciate it. Just like yeah, it's about time. Thank you. But I think deservedly so. The kid's gonna be great. I'm so glad they're not gonna bury him down in Iowa anymore. Consistent time for him is going to one be great for the offensive flow of the team, especially on the power play, but then just his development because he's nowhere near I think at his top potential. So he's going to continue to grow. And how long has it been since the Jason Zucker trade to acquire him in that deal where he's been at like the top of those prospect pools for the Wild? It's just like, okay, when is he coming up?
right.
Everybody's saying he's ready, and I understand you got to work around the cap and everything like that. Finally, 22-23 is the year Kalen Addison is going to be unleashed.
Yep. It's funny you say that because I was almost wondering if it was going to be like a Brett Ballmer situation or something where you get teased with this guy's 9-game stint and he looks awesome, has like 3 points, and then you just never see him again. But yeah, I'm very happy to see that they're actually using Addison, and that I think that shaved dome piece makes him look more of the part too. I think he's a little bit more hard assy.
He's seen some stuff.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he's seen some shit.
Oh god. Before we do wrap up here, we have to give a quick shout out to one of our presenting partners. in Meyerhoff Designs. If you see the beautiful little work of art up in the corner here, the show logo, that was done by Will Meyerhoff, head designer at Meyerhoff Designs. You can find him online on Twitter at Meyerhoff Design, his Twitter handle, or at meyerhoffdesign.com for all of your graphic arts needs. From my understanding, we might be able to get him to get some like fancy looking layout here around the pod for us to spruce it up and make it look a little nicer. But he does good work. He does good work. So that'll do it for this episode of Another Wild Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment down below if you have anything you want us to talk about, or if you think we just said something that you don't agree with, let us know. Any feedback's good feedback. So that is Jake Jensen. I'm AJ Fredrickson, and we will talk to you next week, everybody. See you later.